You need to read this. Future Quest presents Birdman. So it's been a while since I've been this enthusiastic about an issue, a single issue. Yeah, if I had not read this late last night, I would have made a video about it right then and there. But I had to wait till today to do it in order to be a semi-responsible adult. So, Future Quest presents. The idea behind this series is that they take the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons and turn them into, like, modern-day series. They kind of did this, like, 2 years ago, and they had a thing called Wacky Raceland. And Wacky Raceland was the answer to the question, what if the old Hanna-Barbera show Wacky Racers with the crazy cars and cartoon characters and stuff, what if that was Mad Max? So it was very edgy, it was very sort of over the top, it was very adult. There was no way that, you were going to let a kid read it. So this one takes this series, Future Quest Presents, it takes the old cartoons and does them basically straight. It updates them a little bit, but not really that much. Now, I didn't really watch the old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I never watched Birdman. I didn't even watch Harvey Birdman. Likewise, Future Quest Presents, it used to have Space Ghost. I never watched Space Ghost. I barely remember Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Which is to say that I have no nostalgia for this stuff. This is not something that I am whatever, reliving my childhood for. I didn't really know anything about Birdman at all. It turns out that he is a very, very blatant ripoff of Hawkman. Not just in terms of the look, but his backstory is that he was Ray Randall, who was a archaeologist who went to Egypt, discovered an ancient source of power, and became a bird-themed superhero. It's Hawkman. It's exactly Hawkman. So we see the crew here. Writer is Phil Hester. Artist is Steve Rude. And what's sort of notable about this issue, there's nothing about the constituent parts of it that stand out. The art is good, as you can see here. It's actually very good in some places, but it's not great. It's not like, Gary Frank or Greg Capullo level. The writing is good, but it's not, Grant Morrison on his best day level. The story and the plot are good, but they're not great. There's nothing all that special about them. But somehow you put all this stuff together. You have pretty good writing, pretty good art, pretty good story and concept, and it comes together, and this is one of the best things I've read in a while. It's really weird how it happens. Basically, we see the origin of a character named Mentok. Like I said, I don't know who that is. But Mentok is basically this very powerful psychic who basically schemes to take over the world. And he does it by... he's trying to do it by reaching out to these old, seemingly dead gods. Like, the issue before this, wherever he was trying to resurrect a Maori god, of all things. And now he's trying to reach out to, like, the primeval entity, the thing that's sort of the prime mover, the thing that is beyond every other plane of existence. And it looks like he's about to do it, and he has to draw on the mental power of his cultists, and it turns out that they're just not quite strong enough. What they need is a cult member who had been with them, but had left them when she found Birdman, because it turns out that Birdman is the father of her child, something that he flat out forgot about when he became Birdman, because it turns out that when he took on the power of Ra, which is how he got how he is, he just simply forgot a lot of his old life. I read the last issue. I did a video review of it, but not a lot of people watched it, which is understandable. This series sells terribly. It does like 11 or 12,000 per issue, and it's been going down for a while, and it's been really solid. The only reason that I even bothered to read it is because Englentine mentioned it a couple of times as being a really solid series. And I read it, and I basically liked the earlier issues, which were all about Space Ghost, but I wasn't crazy. I wasn't motivated to do any kind of review of them. And then I liked the last issue well enough, but if you read the title of my video, you'll see that I said that there were some quasi-SJW elements in the early part of it that almost made me hate it. And luckily it got over that, and it was much more of the stuff that was in this issue was also in the last issue. One of the quasi-SJW elements is you see this character here, and her code name is Falcon 7. Now, like I said, I never saw the old cartoon, but I guess Falcon 7 was like a blatant ripoff of Nick Fury. This tough, gruff, cigar-chomping dude with an eye patch. Actually, I think he smokes a pipe, but whatever. He was like Birdman's government liaison or whatever. So in this series, they made him into a Indian female named Dev. Now, like I said, I don't have enough nostalgia for the old show to be really annoyed by that, but I think even if I did watch the old show, it wouldn't really bother me too much because this character, I'm just so used to replacement characters like this, diversity characters, just being really annoying, and females especially are like, they have to play this like gender politics game all the time. They just have to prove that they're better than other men, or maybe they're very depressed, maybe they're very angry. I mean, I've worked under female bosses before, and most of them aren't like that. And the ones that are, everybody hates them. It's not an admirable character type. So I'm just so used to female characters being like that it really shocked me when she was just like a normal person. And you don't see it here, but in the first issue, in the previous issue, they actually showed her in her underwear. So they weren't even, they weren't afraid to show her in a somewhat vulnerable but attractive light. One thing that SJWs like to talk about is they like to talk about how it's unfair to compare the replacement characters to the characters that they're replacing, because the original characters had like a long time build up until they became popular. So you can't judge a character like Riri Williams based on the first 10 or 12 issues. You have to give her time, but Iron Man caught on to people pretty quickly. You didn't need several issues to work out like what kind of character Iron Man was, and it's like that with she's only a supporting character. I don't want to see her in her own series or anything, but just because I know for a fact that this used to be a white male character who's now an apparently Indian female, it didn't bother me because she was done well. She was in the previous issue a lot more than she's in this issue. Like, I think this is the only page that she's on, but I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, so it keeps going, and Birdman takes the woman, the mother of his child, to the hospice care where their son is. Their son who is dying of a brain tumor. And she, even though he doesn't know who she is, because he just flat out forgot, she has been studying what he is, and like what the why of what he is. And she concludes that the power of Ra would be enough to save their son. Because he really only uses his powers in very, very limited ways. He just, flies around and punches people, basically. But if he has this vast store of mystical energy, he should be able to do a lot more with it. So she convinces him to use his power to save their terminally ill son. And you see these panels here. These panels are, they're kind of small. And, they're not overly important, but I really liked his look here. He looks, the way that he's depicted in these two panels right here, the way that you can see the concentration, but also like the weight that's he's sort of taking on. And so he's trying to use his power to fix his son, and he starts to tap into that store of mystical energy to save his son. And like I said, go buy this issue. This series needs more love. It does. So he does it. He taps into this power, and it's not enough. It turns out that there are just some things that no matter what you do, they're inevitable. Even though he's able to do what she said, to tap into this power that he didn't know was inside of him, it's not enough. You can always hope for a miracle in these cases, but it's called a miracle for a reason. It usually doesn't happen, and even the power of the sun god isn't enough to force it to happen. And it's a really surprisingly deep moment here. We've got this comic that's based on an old kids cartoon that doesn't really get shown much. we've got lost love, we've got the importance of like duty and responsibility, both to one's job or organization or whatever. I'm not really sure what he actually does. But also to one's family. We've got these quasi-religious elements. We've got him discovering his inner power. We've got the inevitability of death and loss, all in one 22-page comic. It's really, wow. Like, this stuff is like way deeper than it has any real right to be. And then it ends on this cliffhanger, where Mentok says that Birdman wasn't able to save his son, but the god that he's trying to reach out to might be able to, so he gives the mother a choice to either join him or kill Birdman. And you can see in her eyes that this is a real choice for her, that she's really thinking about it. She might actually do it. So not only do we have a complete story that I don't think you need to read the previous issue to know what's going on here. It would probably help, but I think for the most part, you got pretty much everything. And this is what older comics used to be amazing at. They, like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, were great at this, where they could tell a complete story that still set up the next issue, so that you wanted to read it. And so the question I have is, why aren't you reading this? Because statistically speaking, you're not reading this. With as low as the sales numbers are, you're not, most people are not reading this comic. Why is that? Is it that DC just failed to promote it? Is it that the word's just not getting out enough? Is it that there's not enough people talking about it? Is it, like I said, the only reason I know about it is because Englentine mentioned it. It's like, this does so many things right. This is the kind of stuff that a lot of us say we want, and it sells less than 12,000 a month so far. The one thing, I will say one thing against it, and I mentioned this quite a bit in the first video I did, about the last issue, is that I'm not 100% sure who the target audience is. Because there's especially in the earlier issue, not so much this one, but in the earlier issue, there were some kind of adult situations that were not... I don't think a kid would have a problem with it, but I think a parent would have a problem exposing their kid to it. And plus, there were just some really, like, weird, like, blue moments. Like, there was some stuff about his sex life that we didn't need to know about. Showing Falcon 7 in her underwear. Like, I appreciated that as a heterosexual male, but I don't know how, like, a mother's gonna, see that in a book. So I think it's sort of written for an all ages type of thing, but it may be that it's a little too kiddie for adults, and it's a little too adult for kids. That's the one thing that I will say against it. And I think it was more pronounced in the earlier issue number 5, rather than this one. But yeah, this is one of those series that not a lot of people are reading, not a lot of people are talking about, but this issue was it was really a surprise, a real pleasant surprise, which we haven't gotten too many of those recently. So tell me what you thought. Tell me if you're gonna check this series out because of my review. Tell me what you think of it if you have read it. In any case, this is Unring Chevron signing off.